Hey guys, this is James with thegraymattersblog.com coming to you on another one of my walks through the beautiful South Texas woods. And today we're going to be continuing the series that I started in my last video called Vampires That Don't Suck, pun intended. And it's going to be where we talk about different vampire tropes and the way you can make the old tired vampire tropes interesting, because at this point they're kind of overplayed. And what we're going to be talking about today is Aswang and one of the ways to make it a little more interesting is to draw from different cultures, in this case Filipino. And I think that's going to be really interesting and something we can really do a lot with. I'm going to take just a second, guys. Some very interesting foliage here. I really like the purple of those berries. I don't actually know what they are, but I'm 90% sure they'll kill you. Almost any attractive looking berry, if it's not a well-known blackberry or something like that, probably poisonous. Anyway, so continuing on, this is going to be talking about Aswangs and Filipino vampires. I do want to take just a moment to say, guys, we're trying out a little bit new thing with the video. Go ahead and let us know in the comments if this looks better to you, if this looks a little smoother, if the video is a little easier to watch. Also, if you came here from Facebook or any other link, go ahead and take a moment, log into your YouTube app, and that way you can like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. It really helps us out. So we're going to be talking about Aswang, and right now you can't talk about Aswang and Filipino mythology at all without bringing up a show that's on Netflix called Trece, which I cannot recommend enough. It's really fun, it's really interesting, and it's a completely new take on urban fantasy, which is of course just fantasy and monsters and all that sort of thing in the modern world, and this does a super good job of it. And it's based in the Philippines. There's a main character who's the bridge between the spirit world and the normal world, and she has to deal with all these crimes relating to the supernatural world. It's really good, and it's such a different take on urban fantasy than we've seen before. Can't recommend enough. The reason I have to bring it up is because they have Aswang. Now, I am not a Filipino. I have only read about Filipino legends and the different Aswang types from what I've read. But the type they use to me, and if you know a lot more about Filipino customs and folklore than I do, please let me know in the comments. Let me know if I'm wrong on this. But to me, it seemed like a cop-out. It seemed really lazy because their Aswang are basically just vampires. They're ugly Nosferatu-style vampires. And the Aswang is such a cool vampire that seemed like such a loss, because I would so have loved to seen it played up a little more traditionally. Now, when I'm saying traditionally, again, this is just based on the books I've read, on the information I've seen. I'm not an expert on the subject, but this is what I've seen, and I think what I've seen is a lot more interesting than what they did. So, Aswang, one of the key features that we usually see that makes them a little different, because in some ways they're a lot like vampires. Sometimes they're very attractive and yet have a monstrous visage that comes out, just like you see with vampires a lot. But one of the key features, at least where I've seen it depicted for Aswang, is they have a tongue or a proboscis instead of fangs, which, first of all, that right there is just way scarier to me. Some tentacle-like appendage with a spike on the end getting shoved into your body just sounds so much scarier than getting bitten. And then when we get it, it gets even creepier, because one of the key features with Aswang is that it's not just that they drink blood, although that's definitely some depictions, but a lot of the depictions, they actually specifically eat the infant children from a pregnant woman's stomach. They actually devour the fetus. And, in some of the folklore, an Aswang is actually the explanation for a miscarriage. If a woman loses a baby, it must have been an Aswang. In some of them, the tongue or proboscis goes in through the navel. In some of them, it's a little more graphic, and I'll just leave that to your imagination. But it's really disturbing, it's really horrible, and would lead to some really great, terrifying scenes if they had just worked them into that show, or if someone decided to work them into a different urban fantasy. Back in the day, I used to play a urban fantasy role-playing game called World of Darkness, and they did a really good job with it. They actually mentioned Aswangs. It was probably the first place I heard it before I started really looking into them, because I thought they were so cool. There's another thing, like any kind of folklore monster, you have to understand that, there's a different story for every grandmother on every hill who told the story. And some Aswang are called tik-tiks. And I'm sure that's a very much Anglicanization of it, but they call them tick-ticks. And one of the things I have heard, which I don't know how traditional is, but I thought it was a really cool idea, is that the reason they were called a tick-tick is because that's a sound they made. And one of the interpretations was that they were kind of more insectile in their true form, still with the proboscis that they would either use to drink blood or to eat a child out of a woman's stomach. And by adding that element, I mean, how much scarier is that? Attractive Filipino woman who suddenly turns into this insectoid monster with clicking plates of chitin as she, pops out this enormous proboscis and starts trying to shove it into you. That just sounds freaking terrifying. And I would love to see something like that depicted a little bit. And like I said, I feel like they missed their mark on this because at least the versions I've heard and portrayed as traditional were so much scarier than what they gave us, which again, were basically Nosferatu vampires. So play with that idea a little bit. I really want to see someone do that. And I think that can really breathe some new life, again, pun intended, into vampires. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for the day. Thank you guys for joining me on my walk. I really appreciate it. You guys are my favorite part of this. When I go on these walks and I don't take you guys with me, I really miss you. So go ahead and take the time. Please give us a subscribe, give us a like, and leave us a comment just letting us know how we're doing, even if it's just a good job, or to let us know if there's something we should be improving on. And I will see you guys on my next walk.